You're listening to The Sound of Young America. I'm Jesse Thorn, America's radio sweetheart. My guests on the program are Steve Agee and Brian Posehn. They play Steve and Brian on the Sarah Silverman Program. Sarah's neighbors, friends, and gay couple. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Hey.
So we kind of got into this before we went onto the radio. But one of the reasons I wanted to have the two of you on as a pair is that your characters are as a couple. Is that your characters are two of the only gay characters in fictional television that are gay, do gay stuff, and talk about being gay, but don't represent some kind of gay stereotype. And in fact, kind of your characters kind of work against gay stereotype in a certain way.
Right. I think that was the idea. I don't know. We weren't behind it when. We weren't in the first meetings, but yeah, I think that was the idea: is to make us gay, and we're not going to be like any other gays you've ever seen on TV.
It's so not gay that like the first few episodes, some of us didn't even know we were gay as we were shooting. Right, Brian?
Yeah. I had no idea till like I think episode 2 or so, where I finally said it. I think I said it to you first, like, "Hey, are we supposed to be a gay couple? Is that what the deal is?" Like,
that can't be true.
That is totally true. That is how not gay we were written.
Wasn't one of the very first episodes one of the subplots, or one of the primary plots of the episode was Brian, your character Brian, claiming to be bisexual despite having never been with a woman?
I think that was around when I figured it out because in the pilot, in the pilot she makes a gay joke, but it's never really attributed to us, to one of us being gay. She just says it about her friends.
Yeah, and in the opening credits of the pilot, I think, before it actually went to series, it was originally like, "This is Steve and Brian. They're gay or brothers or something." Like, it was uncertain what we were.
Right.
It wasn't pitched to you as you guys are going to play the gay couple next door?
No, never. We didn't even talk about it. For me, it was like the easiest gig I ever got, because it was just, Sarah wants you to be on her show, and I went, okay, and then that was it. You know, I'll do anything for her. So I had no idea. I mean, honestly, people think it's a joke because I've talked to other people about it, and they think, "Oh no, you're messing around," but nope.
The pilot episode also, we didn't really have a B story when we shot it. It was just the one scene in the restaurant where Sarah farts and shit goes to the bathroom in her pants.
There's a lot of things that happen on the Sarah Silverman Program that we can't really talk about on public radio. It's an interesting contrast, these characters that you play, against the rest of the content of the show, because Sarah Silverman's character, much like her stand-up stage character, is this very naive person who is completely self-centered, and that self-centeredness sort of manifests itself often in kind of blithe hatefulness, racism, sexism, anything that might come out of an extremely self-centered character.
Right.
Whereas your two characters are actually kind of sweet,
just like real life. Basically, the characters are us. I mean, she cast us because they wrote it for us, you know, and I like to think nice guys, and I mean, the only thing that isn't us about the characters is that we're gay. Other than that, we're big video game slacker couch potatoes that you see on the TV.
How do you think the fact that your characters are gay colors them on the show? Like, what do you think is the significance of making them gay, as opposed to, say, roommates?
That's a really good question, and
I think I've thought about this, and the only thing I can come up with for the reason they made us gay is kind of just to make fun of me and Brian in real life. Like they were sitting around the writer's room and they went, "Hey, let's make them gay."
No, I think what it really, I think it's like if our characters were having these arguments and we were just roommates, you'd be like, "Are those guys gay?" You know what I mean? Like,
It gives it gives a nice reason for the two of you to be so attached at the hip as well.
Right.
You mentioned, Brian, that this was the easiest job you ever got, since it was just kind of served to you on a silver platter. It must be kind of exciting to be again making a television show like a real job with all these people who you've worked with, and the two of you have known and worked with for so long.
Yeah, it's a lot like the Mr. Show experience, where I get to make TV with my friends, and it's way more fun than coming into a room and not knowing anybody. It's just been great. I mean, that's part of why I'm back, and why, it's not just the writing and not just that it's a good show, but it's my friend's show, one of my favorite people in the world. And then I get to hang out with her, and then all these other people like this guy and John Schrader, one of our writers. We've been friends forever. It's just been awesome.
What about for you, Steve? This is a big break as an actor for you.
Yeah, this is my first TV experience. Before that was writing for Jimmy Kimmel, and before that was stuck in reality TV. I've worked on like every reality show, from Real World to Road Rules, Osbourne's, Temptation Island, like you name it. I worked on all the old school reality shows, and then through Sarah, I got the job over at Jimmy. And didn't start there. I was a writer. I was a TV watcher for 2 years.
What is a TV watcher?
You think you watch TV?
Yeah, you watch TV for about 10 hours a day. The worst TV, because his monologue is video clip heavy, and those are the things that you watch for. And then I became a writer for about 6 months before Sarah's show got picked up, and I left to do that.
How did you get this career in reality television? Like, how did you end up? I can see how someone just gets a job, and that people get 1,000 jobs in television. But
well, I originally came to LA with a band. I was a musician. I was a bass player, and then within a few months, that ended, and I was the only one that stayed in LA. Everyone left, and I met a girl who was taking classes at the Groundlings, sketch comedy improv theater, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. I went to some shows with her, and I started, taking classes there for a while, like writing classes and stuff, and one of the teachers worked over on The Real World, and she gave me my first job. And once you're in reality television, like, it's like the mob. You just can't get out of it, because there's new shows popping up all the time and people leaving to go work on them. So you can always, once you're in, you can always find a job.
What jobs did you have?
I was a logger. I'd watch all the raw footage and enter the info. I was on the Osbournes, I was a transcriber. I had to write Ozzy's dialogue like word for word, which was impossible.
Can you type fast? Are you 100?
Yeah, I can type pretty fast. I mean, but you have the luxury of rewinding, which you did many times. And then I went on, other
although you
shows.
don't have the luxury of transcribing a person who speaks coherently.
Yeah, exactly. And then I went on to do story editing and assistant story editing on like Joe Millionaire.
A story editor, that's like the
those are like jobs that would make you never want to watch television, let alone work in television again. Like,
well, it ended when I went into severe depression and started having such bad panic attacks that I became agoraphobic, and I just stopped going to work because I couldn't leave my house.
Wow.
And then Sarah actually was the one who suggested me going on antidepressants, which within a week, after 3 months in my house, I was out and about and was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then she got me the gig over at Kimmel.
Did you feel like your trouble came directly from your work?
No, I had suffered from panic disorder for years and years, but only like once a year I would have a panic attack. But for some reason, once I started doing reality TV, they came a lot more frequently.
As a story editor, that's like the reality television equivalent of a rough equivalent of a writer, right?
Yeah. Well, you look at all the raw footage and piece together an episode.
And the amount of work just sounds insane, because I've been involved in shows like that and seen the people doing that job and just felt so bad for them. Like I'm the consultant that just comes in and works for 2 hours and goes, that's funny, that's stupid, and then I leave.
It's
and then
soul-sucking.
some poor bastard has to sit there. Yeah.
Did you feel when you were doing that? Did you feel that kind of? Did you feel? I almost want to say like moral culpability, but like did
Oh yeah.
because it's such a strange thing the way that a narrative is imposed upon this huge.
And there's a lot
volume
of stuff that's done in post-production on those shows. You know, you'll actually have the actors come in and re-VO, which you can always tell. You can always hear the ADR in a reality show that just sounds like it's in a studio rather than outside.
ADR is like the dialogue that's off camera that's recorded later.
Well, it's if you have bad dialogue. We do this on Sarah's show too. If the sound isn't quite up to par, you have to go in later and try and match it up in the studio. Or in reality TV, you go in later and make a story in the studio.
Brian, you had since your Mr. Show experience, you had a number of very kind of odd. You had a very odd variety of different kinds of gigs in between. In between your, I mean, you were working as a touring stand-up comedian, of course, the whole time. But you know, I mean, I was reading your Comedy Central bio, and your Comedy Central bio still pitches you as the guy who was on some episodes of Just Shoot Me and
that's
the
really
I
old. Yeah, I have
TV
to change
shows
that.
you.
Well, I have a new special coming up, and I'm so lazy. They asked for a new bio, and I haven't given them one yet. But yeah, I really have to update that thing.
But it's
yeah, I am also known as the sitcom guy. But then I've taken a lot of behind-the-scenes writing gigs that I won't even admit to on air. But
I'm going to ask you to admit to at least one of them. Like, what is that? I know that if you get a reputation as a funny guy who can write some jokes, you can get a job on something where they just say, "Bring us 5 funny guys."
Yeah.
What kind of jobs have you worked on like that?
Well, I did the Bad Man show. Not even the good one, not the one with Jimmy and Adam.
Oh, the Bad Man show.
Yeah.
I thought Batman was like some new kind of Batman.
I did,
Batman and Robin.
No, I did the Man show, but not the one that the people remember fondly. The other one. But that was like a couple days a week and working for friends. It was my friend Tom Giannis, director of the Tenacious D shorts, and really funny guy. And that was another thing where these gigs come easy, and I need it to feed my dogs, and you know, it's I think 2 days a week I won't want to shoot myself, so I go in and I take it. And
what is the experience when you're working on a show like the Sarah Silverman Show, and you're working with friends? How is the experience different outside of just the, you know, it's your buddy, so it's nice to hang out with your buddies? Like, do you make different kinds of contributions artistically, or does it feel like you're involved in a different way?
Yeah, and more so even this year, season 2, we both got to be in on the writing process, which we weren't last year. So, and then they're also really good, and they were last year with letting us, I think that's what you're asking, but letting us riff or talk about scenes with the director. I mean, that's the one thing of having a relationship with a guy like Rob Schraub, or when Liam Lynch comes in, you're already friends with that guy. So it's way more comfortable to go, hey, I don't like this, or what if we, you know, what if this ends like this, you know, things that you can't always do when you don't know the director. And that's been great. And they do seem like they welcome our opinion. I mean, Sarah knows we're funny. She's known us for years. All the writers know we're funny. So they are going to look to us, you know, and they'll even ask us, like, especially if it's something like this year, there was a D&D episode, and you know, so they know I actually play D&D, so they came to me and asked for help with that, you know.
I think we may have talked about this when you were on the show to talk about your stand-up a year or two ago, Brian, but when you say that you do actually play D&D, you're talking in a contemporary time frame.
Yes.
Like a 2007. Do you still play regularly?
Yeah, once a week, and we play the old school '80s second edition advanced D&D.
Because there have been new D&Ds since then.
Yeah, there have.
Wasn't there like a new D&D very recently?
Right, and we used the old book, and my dungeon master actually went on eBay and found all these old books. And the crazy thing is, one of them was his that he had gotten rid of about 10 or 15 years ago.
Oh my God.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane.
He found like 7 books, and one of them was his.
Did it like have his name written
inside? Had
old
character sheets inside, so he knew it was his.
Wow.
Character sheets he had left in there.
That's
Isn't
insane.
that nuts?
That's totally crazy. Well, but now, Brian, you're a
And I play with other writers and comics. I'm outing Patton Oswalt right now, but I play with him every Wednesday. We've been playing together about, God, it seems like almost 5 years we've had a regular gig. Until at one point about 3 years ago, our DM got a girlfriend. And I swear to God, shut down Dungeons and Dragons for over a year. And then we were just jonesing to get back in the game. Every time I'd see the other guys I play with, Blaine Capatch also. He's our elf. We were dying for this guy to ditch his girlfriend and get the D&D game going again.
Did any of you consider becoming the DM as Dungeon Master, the guy who guides you through the epic journey of swords and monsters?
Right. I think Patton would have been best suited for that, but I'd be a crappy DM. I'd be awful.
I would think Patton might get too excited about the opportunity to pile adjectives upon adjectives.
Right.
We were shooting this summer.
It'd be a very wordy adventure if Patton took over.
Brian came in one morning and he was like, it was like the day after one of their games, and he's like, oh man, all of our characters were killed off last night. He seemed really bummed out about it. He's like, couldn't believe it. We were all killed last night. Patton had been playing via speakerphone.
Yeah,
like somewhere else.
Yeah, he was on the road somewhere, and
that's awesome.
Ridiculous.
You're listening to The Sound of Young America. My guests are Steve Agee and Brian Posehn. They play the characters Steve and Brian, the romantically involved neighbors on the Sarah Silverman Program. Right now we're talking about Brian's real life Dungeons and Dragons playing habit. It's a.
Now, did you ever play?
I played. I had a babysitter when I was. When I was the age that you have a babysitter,
Right.
like in
15.
up in 20, 21. It was definitely it was at least 5 years before I moved out of my mom's house. So that would make it like 21, 22. No. I did play a little bit, and then I played one where you got to make your own superheroes. I remember that my babysitter at one point switched. It was a big deal that he switched from playing Dungeons and Dragons to playing Warhammer, which I think is just similar to Dungeons and Dragons, but it's different in some way. I
never played Warhammer. I think it's you use maps that are actually made, and I think the stories are more put together and less using your imagination, but I'm not sure.
You're married. I know Patton's married these days. What do your respective wives think of this odd this
My
odd
wife's
habit?
hilarious about it. She always, I'll come home Wednesday night around 11 or midnight, and she'll go, "Did you win?" knowing that there's no winning in Dungeons and Dragons. There's no winning or losing. You just play forever till your character dies. But no, she thinks it's funny, and we're not at strip clubs, or we're not doing whatever else bored husbands do. We're just being silly, and she gets it. We call it nerd poker. That's the because it's my weekly thing, but it's not quite as cool as poker.
Yeah, well, poker's not very cool anymore.
I think
I'd
it's
say
cooler,
Dungeons and
actually.
Dragons is probably cooler than poker at this point. Let's talk a little bit more about working on the Sarah Silverman program. You mentioned that both of you have been involved in the writing process this year, which you weren't. What were your after being involved in the first season? What were your favorite aspects of the show that you thought were particularly great or worked particularly well?
It's a really good question.
I think one thing that worked so well that they did it quite a bit is the conflict between us. Like, we argue a lot, which I think this season you're going to see less of that, because it really did happen a lot. But yeah, I mean, a lot of our B stories were just revolved around conflict between the two of us. This season, I don't think you're going to see that as much, but it was fun. It's kind of fun coming in and yelling at each other all day.
For me, it's more like the world that the whole show creates, I think, is really great. And it just feels, I think what people like about it is, I don't know, because I'm not watching it from the outside, but just the way we all kind of react off of her craziness. I think those are my favorite scenes, are like the diner scenes, really, and they remind me of Seinfeld, the way those scenes would all interact. Like the A, B, and C stories on Seinfeld would always, or not always, but a lot of times, either jump out of the diner or come together at the diner if the scene was later in the episode. Whatever Elaine was going through would be talked about, and I love that about our show, that we kind of, I don't know that I've seen other people make the Seinfeld comparison, but I definitely see it, and I really like that about our show. And it feels fun. Like a lot of times lately, especially in season 2, we're not in the Sarah stories that much.
We didn't work
like
with her a lot.
we'll come in, we'll intersect, our story will intersect at the end with her story, and that's really fun. It just feels like and then we don't wind up working with her that much during the week, so it's fun shooting it where you see her on Monday when you're doing the diner scene with, hey, this is what our story is today, and this is what her story is today, and then we leave and we go off and we have fun and do our stupid story and be silly, and then come back and see her at the end of the week. It's really a cool thing, and we see that from the inside. Does that make any sense? Because
no, absolutely, and it reminds me of one of the interesting tricks that the show pulls off, which is with your characters, and also to a certain extent Laura Silverman and Jay Johnston's characters. You have the very difficult challenge of making a world in which someone literally behaves as Sarah Silverman's, stand-up comedy stage persona does, make sense and make that world make sense as a place where that person would have friends,
right.
Or,
Yeah, I hate to use the word grounding, but I think it actually works there. We do I think our characters, myself and Steve, and then definitely Jay and Laura. Yeah, we ground her. We show that these are people that care about her still, even no matter what insane things she does that day. That normally if your friend did some of those things, if your friend pretended or said that they had AIDS and then at the end of the day told you, no, I don't really have AIDS and I never really thought I did, you would go, you're insane and I'm not going to hang out with you anymore, you know?
Have there been, when you're in the writer's room and you're putting together stories and putting together jokes, have there been stories for Sarah Silverman's character that have been determined to be too far off the wall, like too much of her? I mean, it's hard to go much further past pretending that you have AIDS in order to, gain sympathy. And I think she started a charity in that episode or something.
Yeah.
Well, they're trying to get to those stories different ways too, because they don't want it to be the crazy thing of the week show, And so I think they're trying to find more creative ways to get her to do something and make it more organic, and where she either misinterprets something or just doesn't, just jumps into something without thinking about it. I think they're really looking at more ways to make you still have fun with that and not go, oh, I get it. Now she did that last week. Now she's doing this. Yeah. Oh, that's all the show is. And I think it's real important that they stay away from those kind of, making you feel that way about those stories. So, was there an element?
The initial order for the program was relatively short, a relatively small number of episodes initially, and I don't think Comedy Central, I don't think a lot of other people expected it to be as much of a success as it has been to this point. And Comedy Central came back with a relatively big order of episodes. Was it scary to think, well, where do we take these bizarre little set pieces for, what was it, 14 episodes for the new season or something like that?
16. It was originally 14, and then they went even further. Yeah. That's a concern, and the writers all think about it, and we've commented on it. One of the big things Steve already mentioned is we don't want our characters to just be bitchy at each other every week, too. At a certain point, you're going to stop to believing that these characters even like each other and that they should be together, you know? So we're trying to find, and they're trying to find stories where it's not about the argument of the week. And so it is definitely a concern when you've done 6 to then go, okay, now come up with 16 more. Those were great.
It's good,
and they've got to be as good as the original 6 too, and it's hard.
And another cool thing about having that many of those now, we can, you know, do story arcs that go through the season and not just an episode. You know,
That's true. They have thought about that kind of stuff too,
so I think
which we can't really talk about where our characters are going. But there definitely is, you know, they definitely know what we're going to be doing by the end of season 2. So.
I think an unusual thing about the structure of the show is that Sarah Silverman's character, being sort of like a woman child. I mean,
That's a great, it's
like
great.
Honestly, like a sort of like a feral woman child.
Well, you know, she's a lot like the Get a Life, the
Chris
man-child,
Elliott,
the Chris Elliott man-child character. That's a great way of putting it, the woman-child, yeah, for sure.
That your characters and again Laura Silverman and Jay Johnson's characters also represent kind of real life romance and commitment, and you know, stability in a funny way. Do you have to kind of go out of your way to remember to write into an episode a moment where there is actual shared emotion between your characters, for example?
That's more, I mean, that's more the writers. I mean, Brian and I, our writing involvement is more just going in and pitching ideas, you know, once a month or so, and then
or helping out when they're beating out an outline too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As far as the actual dialogue, though, that lies with the writers.
What was the thing
But
that
I think what you're asking,
Go ahead.
what you're asking is
Keeping us real.
Keeping
At the end,
kind of a
yeah.
little bit of a sweetness to your relationship to balance
that's
out
definitely
that.
on the writers. I think they've been real good at that. Of, you know, every time we you know, blow up at each other, at the end we're gonna pump fists and decide we're still in love and we're still gay for each other.
Were there what was the moment that you know, got handed to you, or the storyline that got handed to you for this season that you were the most excited about? Like, what was the thing where you were like, "Oh, that's wonderful. That's tremendous. That's great."
For this year?
Quite a few. Like,
Yeah, there's a few. We can't really get too into it because it kind of would give away jokes. But let's see. Oh, you know, just little things like one day we get some medicinal marijuana and we smoke it in the tab car, and I was just really excited that they still had the tab car. Like, just little things like that. Like, it really, you know, makes the world seem real. Like, of course, these guys last season they painted their car to have, you know, they whatever. What do you call that when you? It's not even painted, but that thing
there's
that
like
people do.
decals on
Yeah,
it.
It's like
yeah.
the vinyl sticker type of deal.
Right,
Yeah.
but once these guys did that, we don't have any money, so we wouldn't take the tab stuff off of the car. I don't think it would still be the tab car. And then we just kind of roll our eyes every time we got in the car because we're two poor guys who did this dumb joke on each other last year. And I just love that kind of thing is hinted at, you know, that's part of the world.
yeah, you'll still
That,
see
of course,
tab,
we wouldn't
like,
have money to change it. Yeah.
in the background. And
Oh yeah, and we still have all the tabs left over that we bought last year. So every time you're at our apartment now, you're going to be drinking tab because of this dumb prank we did.
Yeah.
So I love that it makes that prank seem more real, you know, and it makes the show seem real.
Yeah.
Brian, the last time you were on the show, we talked a lot about your involvement with the Comedians of Comedy, with Patton Oswalt and Zach Galifianakis and Maria Bamford and many other people here and there. You guys are headed out on tour again, coming up pretty soon. Are you looking forward to that experience? Like, is that something that you're still excited about, or is the novelty worn off?
Oh no, definitely. I look forward to it every year. What's great about it is that we don't do it that often. We haven't, you know, driven it into the ground, and we're not playing places and I'm going there again. You know, no, it's exciting to go back to Chicago once a year and have these great shows and no, I'm totally looking forward to it. And with Patton and I, we've been friends for a long time, and honestly, it sounds corny, but we don't get to hang as much as we used to when we were living in San Francisco, when we first moved to LA, and we weren't working as much as we would have liked. And so then we were spending, a lot of time together, and now we're both married guys. And it's just really fun to get out on the road and joke around and talk and hang for, a week at a time. And we never would get to do that otherwise. We've got the D&D thing once a week here in LA, and then I don't see him until next Wednesday when we go on our merry adventure. But it's really, that's one of my favorite things about touring, is being out with him and being out with our tour manager, this guy Henry, who's a hilarious guy that runs Chunklet, and he's a lot of fun. And then when Zach's with us, another insane person to hang out with. I love Zach, so it just makes it fun.
Steve, is this?
It's not the it doesn't feel like the road. It feels like you're just out in a van with your buddies, laughing all day long.
And you have a new DVD coming out next week.
Yeah, we have Comedians of Comedy at the Troubadour that we recorded. I think the end of last year. Yeah.
And that's a full length, like feature length operation, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of different comics on it. The regular Comedians of Comedy guys, and then we've got guys like Jasper Red, I believe, are on it. And
Jasper's old friend of the Sound of Young America.
Yeah, very funny San Francisco comic. So yeah.
Well, Steve, has this opportunity of being on this show and becoming an actual television actor, do you have any other operations on the table or any other buns in the oven?
I'm just working on TiVoing a lot more stuff. And
sure.
Watching.
Absolutely.
No, I get to do show. I get the luxury now because I'm on a show, of going out and doing shows with Sarah on occasion, or some of my other friends. I've got a lot of free time now. I'm doing stuff for superdeluxe.com. You can see a lot of my short films up there. And that's basically it, doing some writing and auditioning for movies and stuff. Well,
Steve Agee, Brian Posehn, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Sound of Young America. It was a real pleasure to have you.
Pleasure to be here.
Yep.
Well, that's another Sound of Young America video program. I've been your host, Jesse Thorn, America's radio sweetheart. The show's produced by Speaking Into Microphones. Our theme music, written and performed by Dan Grayson with help from myself. Our interstitial music, produced by DJW. I hope you'll visit our website at MaximumFun.org for all our free podcasts, including not only The Sound of Young America, but also the comedy talk program Jordan Jesse Go, the sketch comedy series The Casper Hauser Comedy Podcast, and the Coil and Sharp Podcast. We'll see you next time on The Sound of Young America.